Hey guys, Disloader Magic here, and oh my gosh, is this real life? Somebody pinch me, I think I'm dreaming. Is Ian Duke playing a joke on us? Because he wrote this wonderful article called the January 15th, 2018 Banned and Restricted Announcement. Now, we knew this was coming because they said, okay, January 15th is the next ban announcement, but they almost never ban something like 5 days before a set comes out because they don't know if the new set will fix the problem, except... oh, in this standard meta, you could take a pretty good guess. And they kind of want to sell boxes, which they have not been doing lately. You are going to sell nothing if people have no reason to stop playing energy. It's just that simple, and that's what killed the Amonkhet sales, and that's what killed the Ixalan sales, and the fact that Ixalan, all the cards you need are in Rivals. But they fixed that, there's no other two-part set coming out, so they have banned 4 cards from Standard. This is the biggest banning, oh, not ever, I was going to say ever, but I think they did all 5 of the artifact lands at one point, or something like that. And I think that announcement was like 7 or 8 cards or something, I don't know, I didn't play back then, but I heard about it. Anyway, here we go, drum roll please, you ready for this? Attune with the Aether is banned, Rogue Refiner is banned, Rampaging Ferocidon is banned, and Ramunap Runes is banned. And you're probably thinking, okay, I get it. I know what decks those go in, but that's what you picked? Well, let me just say, I stand behind this completely. I think that they made the correct decision. You know, when they banned Emrakul, everybody was at their throats saying, you banned the wrong card, the problem is Marvel. The problem is degenerate, mechanics like, here, have this for free, and people are just gonna go to Ulamog. What did they do? They just went to Ulamog. There's more Titans. There's 2 more of them, for God's sake. If you would have banned Ulamog, somebody would have played Kozilek. If you ban that, I think there was like an 8-cost creature they could throw out. It's not having to pay for the cost of a creature. That's what was inherently broken. The ban on Emrakul was a mistake. Everybody knew it. So we look at Attune with the Aether and Rogue Refiner and say to ourselves, well, they obviously should have banned the Hydra, right? Because the Hydra was the problem. You couldn't get rid of the Hydra. If you just made the Hydra susceptible to removal, at least somebody with a reasonable amount of removal could stop it. The Hydra was the problem, and the Long Tusk Cub was a little bit too much damage, but keep in mind, they only have a 45% chance of starting with that in their opening hand unless they're cheating, and most pro players are cheating. So you always got to adjust for that little mathematical element, but anyway, Attune with the Aether. Okay, let's go into why I think they banned it, because I actually haven't read the reasoning yet, and just scrolling down, it's like a short novel, so I'm probably going to have to break this video into here's what they did, here's why I think they did it, and then their explanation. And from what I saw, they threw out like win charts and stuff like they did last time. I just kind of browsed it real quick. But yeah, Attune with the Aether. Okay, 3 color is way too playable. That is the problem. Everybody says, well, it's too consistent. Okay, why is it too consistent? Because you could pop anything and anything generates energy. So okay, too much energy generation, too much consistent generation of energy, so that you can save your Hydra 4 times and boost your Long Tusk Cub until it's like Eldrazi Titan level. So it's not the cards themselves, it's the availability of energy. Well, why is energy too easy to generate? It's because 3 color is too easy to play. So people just took the best, recurring or the best individual one-time energy generation from 3 different colors instead of just 2, and they made it work. And the reason is because the color fixing is too good. So people thought, okay, either Attune or Aether Hub is going to be banned. And they chose Attune because it's cheaper. I mean, that's really all there is to it. Now, Attune, you need green mana, and with Aether Hub, you need to not need the mana because otherwise you'll burn the energy immediately, and then it's not energy, it's just color fixing. Also, Attune is like 60 cents, and Aether Hub's like, what, $4? So, pretty easy choice, and people are running Aether Hub in other decks than energy. So, amongst those, that was the correct choice, and a lot of people were saying they're going to ban Attune, and I think, yes, absolutely, letting them get 2 energy for 1 mana while fixing their colors just guarantees that their deck is going to work perfectly. So throw in a little bit of inconsistency in the deck because the consistency is the #1 problem of energy. It just does not screw up. It does not fail unless the person keeps something they should have mulliganed. So next up, Rogue Refiner. The other problem with energy is it's too consistent and fast and difficult to stop, and just it always gets what it needs, it always has enough energy, and the attack power. So consistency and attack power and amount of energy generation, they're all problems. So what does Rogue Refiner do? It enters the battlefield, you draw a card, so it immediately replaces itself, which means that if you have to burn a removal spell to remove this 3 damage creature, which, I mean, yeah, that goes a long way, then you basically did nothing because they have the same amount of cards that they did before. It's not quite that simplistic at a mathematical level, but it's pretty much that way. Oh, and by the way, you get 2 energy. So that's fun. They should have said when you cast him, you get 2 energy, so that at least they get the energy whether you counter him or not, and then you wouldn't be able to bounce this. Because a lot of decks, I noticed, would yo-yo him, back to hand flicker him, whatever, and then, oh, look, 2 more energy, yay. So yeah, Rogue Refiner was one of the absolute problems, and I think at Uncommon, he was only like somewhere between $1.50 and $2.50. I think he wasn't really that expensive. So the lowest impact to the player's wallet is a consideration whether they want to admit it or not, and I can almost guarantee they didn't admit that down below. So getting rid of this gets rid of attack power, energy generation, and card consistency and card advantage. You get a 3-for-1 special by banning this thing, so I think that was an appropriate pick too. Now, I would have gotten rid of the Hydra because hexproof is so flippin' annoying, and it's not like they, well, I don't know how to phrase this. Basically, it's the old double bluff, where if you spend mana and you spend a destroy creature spell on it, then they're forced to use energy to make it bigger and give it hexproof. So, okay, you just force them to use some of that energy that they might need for something else, like a Long Tusk. But since you know that they're going to make it hexproof, and you know you're going to lose your one and only creature removal card, or even 2 because they have enough energy to activate it twice, you don't force them to because you'll lose your cards and maybe you need to kill a Long Tusk Cub or a Rogue Refiner, so you just don't target the Hydra, which means you basically can't get rid of it. It's way too big to block and kill in combat unless you like triple block it or something. So you actually leave them with all the energy. So they never need to use the energy, and then they could just dump it into the Hydra 4 times and make it +4 when you let it through. So it's a double bluff. So that card is just toxic garbage. I would have absolutely banned it. But take away Attune with the Aether and take away Rogue Refiner, do you even have the color fixing and do you even have the energy to prop up your Hydra that many times? Absolutely not. So I guess you could say they solved the problem, but just on principle and just on level of hate, I would have thrown the damn Hydra in there too, but then energy would probably be unplayable. I mean, without 3 cards, what would you even do? Probably move to Red-Green Pummeler, which is an all-in combo and never works. So they also took out Red Rush, which that was one of the absolute top decks that needed to be gotten rid of. But let's do honorable mentions here. This is like a top 10 list of things I hate in Magic. So honorable mentions that didn't quite make the ban list. 30 control and scry and draw spells that doesn't even let your opponent play anything. Anything they play will be countered or removed within 1 turn. They just board wipe and remove and exile and pin down and whatever, and then approach to the second sun and you lose. So they get to waste 30 minutes of your time per round. You almost always go to time, which means you can't leave and go get some delicious burgers at F&M. And on top of that, you don't get to play Magic. Oh my god, people are so sick of decks where you don't get to play Magic. If everything you do is immediately undone by your opponent, your deck does nothing. You're just sitting there as a punching bag, and it just, besides being just, oh, not fun, that wasn't a good match, people land somewhere between that mellow response and I want to kill my opponent. So they absolutely, unequivocally should have banned that stupid trash card. Approach of the Second Sun itself should have been banned, and I don't know or care what that card costs. If you play it, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You are just making everybody around you not have fun at F&M, and go and do a tournament, okay, play it if it wins. Nobody's there to have fun, they're there to win prize money, so that's a completely different scene. But at the local level, people were playing it. I've heard people were playing it at my LGS. Some of the people playing it got so much hate and flack from the other players that they stopped showing up with it. And, at my old LGS, they probably would have been like, oh, they're just butthurt, they're just whining, it's them that are the problem. And at mine, they're just like, okay, I'm an asshole for building this deck. If people are going to complain that much, it's not worth winning like 3 or 4 packs, okay? I'm just going to stop showing up or show up with a different deck. And that's what they did. Faith in humanity restored. Almost. People still play that damn deck. So them not banning anything from that deck, that just pisses me off. I mean, and that's the only card you can ban from it. You can't just be like, oh no, we're gonna ban Fumigate. No, we're gonna ban Negate. I don't think so. People need those control spells when they use them responsibly in reasonable quantities. So they do ban cards based on funness to play against. They've announced it before. They've said word for word, we just found this to not be fun to play against. Oh, and that was Marvel with Ulamog, by the way. They said it's like a 15% chance that you get out an Ulamog on turn 4, but when it happens, it aggravates your opponent so much and doesn't let their deck do anything, especially if the person playing it went first, that was a huge part of why they banned it. That's what they said in the last ban announcement. Or actually, that was quite a while ago, come to think of it. So they completely dropped the ball on not banning Approach of the Second Sun. But then they'd have to admit that a card by itself in a vacuum was too powerful. Speaking of that, Scarab God. They absolutely should have banned Scarab God. And if you ask, well, what deck does that go in? All of them. If you're playing those colors, you're playing Scarab God. If you're not, you're crazy. But I mean, that card's what, like $45 or something? Or $40 on the open market? There goes $160 if you ban it. But it itself, it's impossible to remove. What it does is single-handedly game winning. It's game ending. If you bring it out, it simply wins the game all by itself. There's no two ways around it. One card interacts with nothing else in the game and just wins the game. That should never be the case unless it costs like 7, 8, or 9. So the only reason that they didn't ban it is they don't want to cost players $160 after ruining everybody's wallets with Smuggler's Copter. That said, the card is way, way the hell too powerful. It never should have gotten through play testing. They should have at least made it just destroyable in some way. I mean, you can hit it with the 3-cost Claustrophobia clone. Won't do a damn thing. They can still activate it. I mean, they could have at least made it a tap ability, for God's sake. Or made him cost 6 mana, or just anything. They could have done anything to water this card down, and they didn't. Because they wanted to sell packs and they wanted to make money. Well, you flew too close to the sun, Wizards. So what other garbage piles do we have to put up with? Well, it's not really that big of a list, because it just crippled Ramunap Red. But God Pharaoh's Gift. I don't like that deck because it just feels like it breaks the rules of Magic because you're getting things out that you shouldn't. Now, it does limit them to being a 4/4 black zombie, obviously. But, I mean, so many things have to go right. Card draws, you're only running 4 ofs. Like, you got to usually throw God Pharaoh's Gift into the graveyard and then use Refurbish. And then on top of that, you have to have something worthwhile in a graveyard or your graveyard, actually, specifically. I think the Scarab God is the one that says both. So, I mean, the other thing is people can just nuke this with like Lost Legacy or whatever, or like that other one. There's like 2 of them that just reach into your deck and just ruin your whole game. It's an all-in single-purpose strategy. It's just like Pummeler. If you remove their Pummeler, they lose. So it being so fragile, I don't understand why it did well at the Pro Tour, other than I guess people weren't expecting it at all. But now I don't think it's a terribly large part of the meta. I don't have numbers on that, but it's just so shaky. It's like, yeah, it's kind of toxic and degenerate and annoying what they're doing, but does it really win that often, and what can you do to stop it? I think, okay, let's not ban that. And plus, sideboard and graveyard clearing. Well, now there's actually that dinosaur that people play that clears specific cards, specifically creatures, out of a graveyard. So, you know, there's answers to it. I don't think it's going to really get any more popular, so whatever. So let's talk about the other you don't get to play Magic deck, which is the win on turn 4/5/6 Ramunap Red Rush. How do you stop Red Rush? Because that's what Red does. Powerful creatures with haste that come out and deal damage quickly. Okay, you can't ban that. That's literally what the color does. Well, you throw out a small blocker, a wall, or a Death Toucher, or a First Striker. Any of those. You throw out any of those, and Red has some serious trouble playing around it because they're going to lose 1 creature per swing. Oh, well, they have some of the best creature removal for the cheapest prices ever. I mean, Rivals just made it worse. It was only going to get worse. So you throw out something and you're like, finally, I can block now. It's gone. Lightning Strike. Bye-bye. And there's more than just Lightning Strike. I mean, you guys have probably played against Red Rush. You know what's in the damn deck. And so then you end up just chump blocking because like, oh, your 3/3 just got destroyed, but you have like a 1/1. Okay, you throw the 1/1 out there, chump block, and you took minor damage. Well, now what? They're not running out of cards, and you are. You know why? Because their cards are still on the battlefield. So if you played enough creature removal, you just shut them down completely, and then they top deck and they do nothing. But they do have a top deck answer, and it's called Hazoret, and Hazoret's damn good, and it's based on you not having cards in your hand. So there you go. I mean, it's kind of hard to single-handedly win the game with her, but she's not bad. I mean, the people wouldn't play her if she was bad. So people were saying ban Hazoret. Well, 1, you're banning an awful lot of money from the game, and 2, Hazoret is the backup win condition. It would still be all-in Red Rush then, and then if they top deck, they just lose. They have no answer if they end up top decking and all their creatures are dead or can't swing. So what do? I mean, you got to reduce the amount of damage that can be dealt directly to the player because that makes it way worse when they have 2 ways of dealing damage instead of just creatures. Now, Lightning Strike can hit the player. It just almost never does. It can be used as a finisher, but it's such a classic card that it'd be a shame if they banned it. So I think that was pretty quick to come off their, possibilities list. So what they did is they banned Ramunap Runes. It taps for colorless, comes in untapped. It's a desert, and you could just pay 1 life, tap it, and you got red. So it's basically a mountain plus, and nobody cares about life in Red Rush because they're not going to outspeed damage you even if they go first. It's just not going to happen. But then, late game, if you pay 4, tap it, and sacrifice a desert, which is very commonly not this one itself, so they can do it multiple times, well, in multiple turns, 2 damage directly to each opponent, straight up. And that is just enough to get them to 20, because remember, it's just a drag race to 20, and this is 10% more. So to get rid of that is super subtle because it's not a fixer. It's not really used for much else. I mean, it kind of sucks if you can't play it, but it's not one of the better deserts out there. Like Shafet Dunes is a good desert. So I think banning that was the most subtle, tiny little, minuscule power down for red, and people can't really complain about it that much. And remember, it still only has about a 55% chance of showing up in an average Red Rush game. So they have powered it down to the least amount possible, and if that's what they were going for, great. So the second card is Rampaging Ferocidon. So the whole you can't block because they blew up all your creatures, and you can't block because on Crop Crasher, those are problems, but you can't block because they blew up all your creatures and this creature has Menace. In Red Rush, it might as well be unblockable. So Rampaging Ferocidon is a problem, and it was a bit of a blind spot for me because people started playing it more recently. But it's a 3/3 dinosaur with Menace. Players can't gain life, which that's a whole other way to play around Red Rush's life gain. Like, you throw out an aerial responder and you might single-handedly not lose the game because of that. Lifelink is that important. So if players can't gain life, that is absolutely ridiculous because you just automatically shut down one of their best mechanics to stop you. And then whenever another creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. So they don't give a crap that they're hitting themselves, and then you bring out a creature, you take 1 additional damage, so you're shooting yourself in the foot, and then they just lightning strike it. That, or they lightning struck the card next to it, so Menace is unblockable, or on Crop Crasher comes in, Exert, and now it literally can't block. So all of those were problems, so they just got rid of this because this was the most problems. Now, it's a shame when people want to play dinosaurs and they can't play this, but if you're playing red dinosaurs, honestly, you should probably just play Enrage. It's better. So it's a real shame that we had to lose this card because these Red Rush douchebags were using it irresponsibly, which is why I would have maybe taken out Rampaging and instead banned on Crop Crasher. But still, I mean, this still has Menace, and they still have ways to remove creatures down to just 1 creature. And even if you had to double block, you'd probably die to a 3/3. At least one of your 2 creatures will. So the whole let's break the tie thing might have been the whole players can't gain life, and every time you drop in a creature, you take a damage. So it's a toss-up between this and on Crop Crasher, so I guess they just said, screw people who want to play Dinosaur Tribal, and they banned this instead. So overall, I'd say I 90% agree with this. I think they took the energy away from the Hydra card itself with Attune and Rogue being gone. And Red Rush is still playable, but crippled. It's back to its, tier 2, which Red Rush is always tier 2. It always has been. It's never just been utterly dominant. And it's always been like a viable strategy because, Red Rush is what red does. It just got a little bit too out of control, so now the lands can't deal damage, which sounds very reasonable to me, and just one of their best cards is gone. Other than that, get Hazoret out, get on Crop Crasher out, get all the Haste Granters out. I mean, you could still play the deck, and it's just the tiniest little bit powered down. And that's the thing, you can still play Energy to an extent. I mean, without Attune and without Rogue, you actually might get color screwed a much, much, much higher percentage at the time. But the deck is still playable. You're just back to the defect level of a normal deck instead of like this hyperinflated consistency. So, I mean, I would add Scarab God to the list, not if I was a business person at Magic, because they would lose players over it. Let's not beat around the bush. People would be pissed. But that card needs to go. It just needs to go. It just simply needs to get the hell out of here. I'm sick of that card. And I would have maybe just take energy and just flush it straight down the toilet and make it a memory, just add Hydra to the list. But that's debatable. I think they power down Hydra enough that deck won't be that much of a problem. Now, if you shrink it to 2-color energy and keep most of the cards the same and go with just green as a base, and then just pick a second color, I think that's still a very viable deck. So I'm going to make a second video with Wizard's Explanation, because I haven't read it yet, and it looks really long. It looks like it would merit a second video. So watch for that later. Now I got to go to work because I'm 30 minutes late, but this is way more important to cover. And my YouTube channel makes more than my shop does, so screw my shop. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next video.